So I finished watching season 3 of Love on the Spectrum last night, and I have notes. Hi, if we haven't met, my name is Heather. I'm a late diagnosed ADHD and autistic human being, and I make videos about all kind of fun stuff. And today's video is a autistic perspective on Love on the Spectrum. Okay, before we get too far, like the sun is coming in on my face, and it's really, it's distracting. So, forgive me for that, but we're parked, we're talking. And so I watched season 3. I actually like Love on the Spectrum. I've watched all the seasons of it and was very excited when the new season came out. But I do have notes. I think the main thing, my main beef with the show is that if we're going to make a show about autistic people finding love, that it probably should be made by autistic people instead of neurotypical people who are trying to get these autistic people to fit into a neurotypical dating paradigm. Because one of the most striking things to me, and this is from every season, this isn't specific, but there might be spoiler alerts. So, you know, if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want anything spoiled, then don't watch this just yet. Save it for later. But I think my biggest beef is the methods in which they do the dating. Autistic people as a whole, and I never like to speak in absolutes or speak for the entire community by any means, but autistic people as a whole like to plan things. We like to know what we're getting into. We script conversations, things like that. So the concept that forcing an autistic person into a blind date or a speed dating situation is going to quadruple the discomfort of meeting someone new, because not only is it someone new, it's something totally unexpected, something you really can't prepare for. And you can see that this causes a lot of stress amongst the participants in the show. And I think that it causes a lot of stress during the dates, which probably makes for good TV, right? Because it's awkward moments, and look at these poor awkward kids. And I think that is kind of another beef that I have, is the infantilization of the autistic participants. It does appear that there are some variations on the spectrum as far as support needs would go with the people that do appear on the show. But they do seem to be in the realms of higher support needs. Caitlin, who was in the first season, was on the lower support needs of the spectrum. And I do believe, and I could be misquoting, but I do believe she actually said they didn't ask her to come back because she was not autistic enough. So I think the people that they choose to show is another complaint that I have with the show, that there should be more representation from different areas of support needs. And I think that there should be older autistic people on there as well. Not just because I am an older autistic people, but I think that, you know, especially with the recent claims in the United States that older autistics don't exist, that we need more representation of that. There was a participant in, I believe, season 1 and possibly season 2 that was older, and I enjoyed him being on the show, but he did not reappear. But I think that we need more representation as far as that goes. And so beef 1 is the way the whole show is set up. It's not really conducive for autistic people to successfully meet and exchange information, get to know each other. You can tell that really, again, this was not something that was constructed by someone with an autistic brain, because it's not conducive to autistic people actually getting to know each other. Sorry, my phone was ringing. It doesn't take into account autistic communication patterns. So I think it's a great idea to expand awareness and get eyes on the community, but it's really not the most helpful way to represent the actual struggles that all autistic people face in that interpersonal relationship space, because it is a social disorder, and that is one of the hallmarks of autism. And so putting people in wildly uncomfortable social situations for anyone, much less for an autistic person, I don't think is a great way to actually benefit anyone in finding love. And I think it's really more of a performative thing. So that would be beef number one. Beef number two is the lack of representation of different levels of support needs and different ages. That would be beef number two. Beef number three, and this is kind of a personal aspect of it, so maybe everyone that is viewing it is not seeing the same things that I'm seeing, because again, we all have our own perspectives, and that's kind of determined by our life experiences. But I have noticed that the people that do participate, and not all of them, of course, but most of them that do participate do things for Autism Speaks, have most likely, and again, this is just my perspective, been participants in ABA throughout their childhood. And there's some instances in the show that really just like hurt my heart to see, because I can tell that this is something they were trained to say or trained not to say. There is one part in one of the later episodes of season 3 where Tanner is talking to his mother and telling her about his date that he really enjoyed, that he says, "Yes, I am looking at you and I am smiling while I am looking at your face. I am smiling. I am looking at you and smiling." And that hurt my heart, because, that was a training. That was something he was trained to do. And it's that ingrained. And that made me question Tanner's whole smiley, complacent, friendly personality. Like, is that really his personality, or is that the mask he was trained to wear as an autistic child? And also with Tanner's date, the last person that he dated, I can't remember her name, forgive me, but she was lovely and they got along really well, but I believe that's because she was completely mirroring his personality. He kept saying, "Oh, she's got a great personality." And I'm like, dude, that's because she's got your personality. She's not expressing any interest of her own. She loves everything he says, anything he does. She's like, "Oh yeah, I like that too. Same," And so I think that's another huge kind of flaw in that, is that most people are not going to recognize that that's what's going on, that this is a mirroring thing, that even autistic women of higher support needs are very high masking sometimes, and that we are told by certain paradigms how to behave as women. And there's a very heavy Disney influence in this season. I even joked while I was watching it, well, we better watch out, or our new health star is going to blame Disney for autism in 6 months. But anyway, I digress. Not to get political on this post, but if you've watched the show, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on it. If you do enjoy the show, if you don't, if you had any beefs or notes with the show, let me know in the comments. Or if you disagree or agree with anything that I've said, that would be great too. Again, we all have our own perspectives, and this is just one autistic person's perspective of a show about autistic people, and the fact that it really is very performative, and kind of fits into what society views autism as. And I think that's the paradigm that we really need to expand, not keep playing into. So I appreciate you listening to my little rant and my notes today, and I will see you next week. Also, I did have one more note about the show before I wrap this up. Many of the participants in the show now have a very large social media following. since the show, and I think that is fantastic. And some of them, James from the show, are even using that to find and meet people on their own without being set up through the show, and I think that is great. But it has also given a platform to some people that have a very large voice that I do disagree with, and one of those is Abby's mom. So Christine, Abby's mom, is on social media, and she is very vocal about that she thinks people with lower support needs who would be considered autism level 1 should not be considered autistic. She has even gone so far as to say that anyone that has not suffered in the way that her daughter suffered and did not have to have therapies or occupational speech, whatever therapy, which I did have speech therapy as a child, should not be considered autistic because they have not struggled at the level that her daughter has struggled. And I take a great deal of issue with this, and I will be making another video in general about the differences between the autistic community and the autism community. And I think that Abby's mom is a great representation of what the autism community is versus the autistic community, which is the community of people who are autistic, versus the often autism mom community, which, again, not to disparage any mother of an autistic person, I feel like you do not get enough support. I am the mother of an autistic person. I'm the grandmother of an autistic person. I can tell you that the support needs for parents are not met. That is why it is so difficult to raise an autistic child. But I did want to bring up that caveat, in case you are new to the show, have never seen it, never experienced it, and you start diving into it. That's something you can make your own mind up about, as far as Abby's mom goes. But she is not alone in her thinking process, and she is also not the only very vocal person with a large voice who spreads that kind of, I guess, dissension within the ranks, as far as like certain people should not be considered autistic because they are not as autistic as her daughter. And they have not suffered as much or been through as much. And so if things were easier for you, I think things are easy for anyone who is autistic, but that you should not be counted in part of that. So that was my little caveat. And again, I bid you adieu. I hope that you enjoyed my little review of the show, Love on the Spectrum in general. And I would love to hear your thoughts. And let me know in the comments if you're a fan of the show or if you can't stand the show or what you thought about this current season. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.